Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Gilliland, and with me is Judge Matt Sciarrino. How are you doing today, Your Honor?
I'm good. I'm good.
We are here to discuss The Time of the Doctor, which, after converting the judge to be a Doctor Who fan, it's only fitting for us to give Matt Smith the send-off he deserves for a job well done. Your Honor, what did you think of The Time of the Doctor?
I thought it was another Steve Moffat masterpiece. I think I got used to because I came into Doctor Who with streaming, and I really loved the commercial-free 50th anniversary special. It seemed like an ungodly amount of commercials for this Christmas special. So I can't wait to watch it without the commercials. But other than that, I think he did a great job of tying together a lot of loose ends. Some people, I've read a couple of the reviews, and they say that he kind of had to force a couple of them together, and maybe, but I think he did a good job of tying a lot of things together that have been open, and it was a very entertaining episode. And like many of the Christmas specials, it had that Christmassy feel to it. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a very entertaining show.
I enjoyed it a lot, too. I agree with everything that you said. I also wonder if we'll start seeing Christmas crackers appearing with more U.S. Christmas dinners now because of it. Like, we did that once in my family a few years ago when before my mom got sick. And I thought it was cute. That was fun. The weird paper crown things, that's different. It's very British, but I wonder.
It's funny. My wife, as from the days when she was in high school and probably before that, I met her in high school, had pen pals in England, and they used to send the crackers to her, and so that's where I first got accustomed to them, and had seen a bunch of them. Yeah, and it's a very cute kind of concept, and I like that particular tradition that they have.
I'm okay adding it in my family. I might have to convince some of the others, but that's okay. On Christmas Day, while they were doing the countdown to the Christmas special, I got a text from my aunt, since my brother and I torture her with our love of Doctor Who. And she said the 50th anniversary was about to come on, and whether she and her son should watch it. And I said, like, yeah, go for it. You could pick up enough of it. You won't get all the little 50th anniversary references, but yeah, go for it. So it's seeing the embrace here in the U.S. is a good thing.
Ended up watching it again. Yeah, I think it's become very popular here, and I like the way they did the marathon leading up. I even got to see the specials that, because they weren't on Netflix, that including the Marilyn Monroe wedding that we talked about on the last podcast. I got to see the entire episode as opposed to a lot of those. There's a common theme to those Christmas episodes, and they seem to have been bigger budget and very family oriented to an extent. They were made for everyone to like gather around the living room and watch, and it's a really nice tradition. And to have a good new show on Christmas, I look forward to watching episodes in the future, and it's now going to be a bit of a long hiatus, but I'll catch up on some other show.
The 9-month wait will be hard after everything that we had for the 50th anniversary. To this, I mean, like, we were spoiled in the past month, going from the 50th to the Christmas special. So waiting till September is going to be mildly torturous.
Yeah, no, it's a very long gap at this point.
Well, we do have Sherlock that will come out in between. Shouldn't Broadchurch 2 be coming out?
Broadchurch 2 should be coming out. My daughter, who loved the first Sherlock, and I haven't seen them yet, she's convinced me to watch the Sherlock. So I'm going to try to catch up on the Sherlocks before the next season starts, because she said that was very, very good.
Some of my mock trial students told me about Sherlock, and I watched it and did the binge watching on Netflix over 3 nights and was really impressed. And
yeah, that's my plan. It'll definitely be a Netflix watch.
Yeah, they were on it, and seeing Cumberbatch and Freeman together. And then I watched the Hobbit 2 last night. It's you can't help but wonder if they had a playful, quips back and forth since they've worked together before.
Yeah, right now I'm doing Orange is the New Black, and then Sherlock's next in my queue.
Haven't done that. I do need to watch Orphan Black because
The commercials, which they've been showing during the Doctor Who a lot, look really good. So I have a feeling that I'll end up doing the Orphan Black too, because it just looks like it's a well acted, good storyline.
Yeah, and God bless that actress. We want you to play multiple versions of yourself and make it believable. And so you're going to be talking to a stand-in and having that's got to be tough. So whatever nomination she got, was it an Emmy, or she got nominated for something for that role? And
yeah, it's got to be an Emmy, probably.
Yeah, well deserved. So let's talk a little bit more about the Christmas special and dive into it. So, I kick into lawyer mode, and I'm sure you kick into judge mode. But Christmas dinner. Clara showed up with the doctor playing her boyfriend nude. If that happened in New York City, what would you expect to hear on an arraignment calendar on December 26th?
It's an interesting one because Clara saw him as clothed, and we, the audience, saw him as clothed. Granted, the family members all saw him as nude, and that missing outtake that I sent you, I think, made that scene even better when it kind of reinforced his nudity a little bit more. It was within a house, so it's not a public forum. I don't think it would make my arraignment calendar as opposed to walking on the street nude. And even that, we have some cases in New York, going topless, male or female, is allowed in New York under our Court of Appeals decisions. So we have a naked cowboy in Times Square performing all the time. Granted, he wears some minimal covering, and there's a naked cowgirl right next to him. So New York, at least in the city, takes a pretty liberal approach towards nudity.
San Francisco and Berkeley would too. So even with the getting from the TARDIS to the apartment, which would still probably be an uncomfortable walk, but that just jumped out at me. And I did love the grandma who, as we saw in...
clearly was enjoying the view.
Yeah, and God bless her. I was a little concerned they were going to do Clara was her own grandma thing, and I'm glad they didn't do that because that would have really made things awkward.
But there has been some, blogosphere stuff showing that because of a ring that she had on, and some other real Whovian experts have said, no, the rings don't match. But there was a bunch of theories going around that was, Clara being her own grandmother. But yes, I'm glad that seemed not to be the case.
That actress had appeared in a Colin Baker episode back in the mid '80s, which I thought was cool to have that. So, well done.
And Steve Moffat, I think, does that a lot. He's a true fan of the old classic shows, and that really comes out in the episodes that he does. He doesn't want to get rid of with this reboot any of the old stories. He wants them to make logical sense as much as timely wobbly time and can make logical sense, because some of these episodes, if you try to figure out the timeline, you really get a headache. But he pays homage to all of the classic episodes, which is really great that the reboot fell into his hands, as opposed to someone that didn't care about the old ones, and then you lost that entire history.
Yeah, well, even in this, they had a little reference about the High Seal of Gallifrey, which went back to the 5 Doctors, with the 3rd Doctor taking the device off the Master in the Death Zone. And it's like, talk about nerding out and being really detailed. It's like one heck of an Easter egg. And I didn't catch that initially. I had to read it on one of the posts that they did that homage. But God bless them for doing that.
And even the way Matt Smith explained and took care of the numbers and the amount of rejuvenations, and he clearly gave a definitive account of which rejuvenations counted, which ones, and it turned out they all did, including that double one, making him the 13th doctor and the last doctor, and clearly not going, that they weren't going to ignore it, that they were going to address it, that they were going to come out with something that would allow for the next doctor, which I guess is the 14th doctor, or we could start again. I don't know if he's got a new 13 lives, or did they give him a new one life, or something in between that is going to play out sometime. But or does he have unlimited rejuvenations now? But they at least didn't ignore the Time Lord rule that you can only have 12 more rejuvenations from yourself, bringing the total to 13.
And I'm glad they did that. And when they use the phrase regeneration cycle, I would take that as another 12.
That's what I would take it as too, that he got a whole new cycle as a gift from the Time Lord.
And by doing such, since each actor tends to average anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, you've taken this show well past, I think, its existence, in all honesty, because, or at least to the 100th episode, the 100th anniversary.
Yeah, either the 90th anniversary or the 100th, and they'll have an escape hatch by then. So, yeah, it's in theory.
Either way, I'm not going to see the next cycle.
Exactly. That'll be for somebody else to deal with. God bless them. But they dealt with it. And granted, the entire Time Lords, coming through the crack in time from June 26, 2010. Part of me, it's like, okay, they want to come in peace. They want to get out. So they don't want to come out in the middle of a war and have the Time War begin anew and end up exactly where they started. I get that. But they can't come out and be a pacifist about it either. So if there's, and part of the, I've noticed this with The Hobbit and J.R. Tolkien's viewpoint against being against isolationism. You can't let evil fester. So if we extend that to Gallifrey, if they do come back, they're going to have to deal with the Daleks. You can't ignore something that wants to hunt you down and kill you.
Right. Well, to some extent, by giving the Doctor his next cycle, they've dealt with that without them having to deal with it, because they at least know he will protect that interest in keeping the Daleks from conquering the universe.
Exactly. But it'd be nice to get Gallifrey back, and maybe that'll be Peter Capaldi's arc, and we can talk about the future in just a moment. But let's think about Mother Superius, Tasha Lem. I am confident she's River Song, and I can outline my thought process on this, but what's your thoughts on that first?
I agree. I mean, I very much got the same feel from her, and I literally wouldn't have been surprised if River had been cast to play that role. Although I think the person they cast did a phenomenal role. I think she was really, really, really good. But yes, a lot of similarities between the church. I think the mainframe computer, almost the way she looked at him, their comfort with each other. All I needed really was a sweetie to confirm, but I got that feeling too, that she's a holographic, or another creation of the mainframe computer. But yes, that it's somehow connected, and more than likely that she is in fact River.
And I agree, glad you agree. My thought process. Lem, looking up the definition of that, is the lunar module. River, after being rescued, grew up on the moon. That's where she got her degree. So that's a very small, finite point. But
and is always in moon suits.
Yep, exactly. So, and also with the hat tip to Apollo, there's one connection there. You then throw in, I do think it's the library. The library becoming the mainframe, Church of the Mainframe makes sense. I see the connection there. There were the way she interacted with him, the outright flirting, the kissing, because, the Doctor doesn't kiss anybody, because he's still showing a fair amount of loyalty to River. All the sexual innuendos she made were very River. And the last line, the fact she knew how to fly the TARDIS. The only other person we've seen do that was River.
Right.
She knew
and she flew it accurately,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to the Doctor, who kind of jerks and haws it a little bit.
She did leave the parking brake on, but that was probably to get Clara's attention when she landed in 2013. But the final thing that did it in for me was the Doctor telling her before they're transported to the TARDIS, "You've been fighting the psychopath within you your entire life."
Right.
I think it's all set up to be River. And so it just makes sense, whether or not she figured out how to clone herself another body, or if it's a holographic projection, which they could do in the library. It makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've read a couple of blogs, and that seems to be where most people's thinking is going, because it absolutely makes logical sense, and it's something the way that Stephen Moffat, I think, would handle things, because he likes those little hints and those little things that eventually it'll come out, and clearly it's that a supercomputer mainframe would become the church of the future. Clearly is something that is in the realm of the sci-fi thinking.
Now, something I thought was a nice hat tip to the past was seeing Smith age. And this makes him arguably the third Doctor, if we include the War Doctor, to die of old age, because Hartnell definitely died of old age in the series. But I thought he looked very Hartnell-esque with the cane and the way he walked and the way the hair and pull back. Did you get a similar vibe, or?
I did definitely get it as a homage to the older Doctors. I think it was also a way of almost making the next Doctor not an old Doctor, in that he's younger than the last Matt Smith Doctor, arguably. But yeah, I think some of those mannerisms and the way he walked, I don't know if it was necessarily meant to be a homage to the first Doctor, or did Matt Smith make it that way in the way he portrayed it just internally by playing an old Doctor. His frame of reference was the old Doctor, so that's the way he acted it. And I could see that happening too, because I think Matt Smith really honors the character and the history of that character.
Beautifully. Absolutely no question. As we saw at the end of An Adventure in Time and Space, with that little heartbreaking tribute, there's no question he cares and the way he's good to the fans. And so even if it wasn't intentional, to me, I left with that. Since Hartnell carried a cane, we see the aged Matt Smith with the cane. This also makes him one of the longest lived Doctors, because he put on 200 years in the series, and then 300 in Trenzalore until Clara comes back, and then anywhere maybe another 200, because he did put on a lot of years when Clara comes back before he dies.
Right.
So what's that make him? He spent 700 years or 800 years in that body? I'm not sure, because the last break isn't explained, but that's one of the longest tenured bodies that the Doctor had then.
And I think that's another, Steve Moffat kind of thing, where that the youngest Doctor is actually the oldest Doctor.
Which I'm cool with that too. Well, let's get to the issue that's I'm very fond of, the bow tie. Do you think the bow tie will continue to be popular despite Smith no longer being at the helm of the TARDIS?
Yeah, I think the bow tie has made a comeback, and I don't think it'll be that quick to go away. I think the scene where the bow tie hits the floor, to some extent, I think is some showing that the next Doctor won't be a bow tie Doctor. And I think that they want Matt Smith to be the bow tie Doctor for a little while, and whether Peter the second season or thereafter or an episode or two puts one on, I don't think he will be the bow tie Doctor um, the way that Matt Smith was for the current reboot. But I still think that, you know, Matt Smith made it cooler to wear it, and I don't think that that goes away with Matt Smith not being the Doctor anymore.
I started wearing bow ties in 2007, and I was at a e-discovery company because, you know, that required me to travel a bunch, and I was speaking on panels. Having a quirky, independent personality, one, the bow tie just fit me, but the other half of the equation was I wanted to stand out on a panel. I wanted to be remembered, so that's why I started wearing bow ties, despite the fact bow ties are cool. But no question there. And I do have many bow tie stories with the ribbing that I took pre Matt Smith Doctor Who. But I am optimistic, just looking at all like my mock trial kids like wearing bow ties, and others that it's fairly ingrained in the culture again, and I think will hold for a while.
My administrative judge wears and has worn a bow tie the entire life that I've known him, from when he was a defense attorney. He was an author, and you know, there's a couple of judges. There's a significant amount of judges in my court that wear them. I don't know if they're kissing up to the boss judge or not, but there's a large number of judges, and there's a sizable amount of criminal defense lawyers that wear them, and the people that wear them tend to wear them regularly. You know, it's kind of their thing.
What was it about New York, the New York legislature that tried banning bow ties on the legislative floor?
No, it wasn't New York. This was out in, might have been Ohio, because it's a friend of mine that's a state senator out there. Yeah, there was a dress code bill to ban bow ties on the floor. And my friend, who's not a bow tie wearer, wore one with the rest of his side of the aisle to protest the. Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out why would anyone care.
Yeah, so that would mean Ohio solved every problem dealing with drugs, crime, poverty. Let's go declare a fashion war on people who wear bow ties. That's silly. So I'm glad they wore it in solidarity. So with that, I do think bow ties will have a future. And I mean, I did wear my Churchill-esque one. I'm glad Smith he had like 3 or 4 of them that he had over the years. You know, and the first 2 were either blue or red, depending on the shirt and the color that you could see. But then there was the purplish one, and then there was either blue or purple with the polka dots. And like the third Doctor, he had a couple different outfits that he wore over his tenure.
Right. But they had a common theme to his outfits, but yeah, he wore a couple of different ones.
And I preferred the Victorian look over the professor look, but that's just my style.
And it's going to be interesting to see what the next Doctor, you know, puts together.
Well, being Capaldi was in a band, I wouldn't be surprised if it has that vibe to it. He also grew up in the time of the third Doctor, and I thought I read something that he actually had an autographed script from the third Doctor.
And he's clearly a fan, so I think he knows the impact that the clothes will have. So I have a feeling that, you know, him and Moffat and are, you know, working out that kind of thing. And I think whatever it is going to have a lot of elements that play tribute to the Doctors in the past. And you know, clearly with the anniversary special, his Doctor knows what really happened in the Time War. So there's not that guilt that the David Tennant and the Christopher characters, Doctors, had. So it's going to be interesting. You know, he can the John Hurt Doctor, which almost had a rock or war feel to it. I can see him returning to that kind of look, because it's no longer the Doctor that we're going to forget about the doctor that we're not going to even discuss. It's now a doctor that was a warrior and that saved the planet. So I think that's going to have a very large impact on the type of outfit and the type of doctor that he's going to be, because he doesn't have to carry all of that guilt around that the past doctors clearly had.
And that man's got some intense eyes.
He really does.
When they had his cameo in the 50th anniversary that I saw in the theater, people cheered, just flat out cheered, which was cool. So,
and those eyes had to be great on that big screen.
it was magnificent. It was wickedly cool. I saw a T-shirt with that this morning on Blue Box and ordered it because it was like rock on. It just looks like a lot of fun. So, and he's clearly a fan, and what a better actor that you could have take that role. I mean, I always felt bad for Colin Baker, because here was a guy who loved the character, and he really got shafted with the outfit and the way the writers wanted him to play it. And, now we have somebody like Capaldi who, like Baker, loved it, another good Scotsman. I think they're going to, find the right look and do the things that will allow him to make the character really successful. Which brings us to, saying goodbye to Smith. He was your doctor that you came into while the series was on. What's your biggest takeaway from watching his 3 seasons?
I thought he really did a great job of capturing both the youth aspect of his character, but still keeping that charm and just that love of life that the doctor really has. And clearly was as much a genius as all of the other doctors and the smartest man in the room. But he also had an aspect different from the tenant, because he was, I don't know, he seemed happier to some extent, and he really seemed to enjoy life, which to some extent the fact that he's the longest living character has something to do with that. I mean, I don't think he wanted to ever give up. I think he kind of battled for every moment that he would have, and I liked his portrayal, and I think that's one of the things that really makes the series what it is, in that it doesn't grow old, because the rejuvenations really make it into a whole new show to some extent, but it still keeps a lot of the charm and the history. And it's a really good idea. And granted, they fell into it because they needed to get rid of the first Doctor, and this was a way of doing it. But I think, but for the rejuvenations, I think the show would have died well before its 50th anniversary.
Yeah. Well, and technically it did. When you look at what the 80s did to the show, which again had a lot of good stuff, but between, as they were trailing down from Baker to McCoy, and they're trying to keep the flame going, both have some great stories. Both Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker have some great stories, but they were on a downhill, trend at that point. And, it then gets canceled in 89. And, it needed to make a comeback, and the fact that it goes from, other than the one blip in 1996, and I think they did an animated one in like 99, 2000, that's not canon.
And I think from what I've heard, that the books very much kept it in people's mind, and then there was a radio show and other things that kept it, still the demand for a new series and a reboot to eventually come out. And it clearly needed it, and I like the reboot a lot. I mean, it's clearly has more of a budget. They're able to do more things. It looks realer, and some of the old classic ones, they're tough to watch because clearly the budget wasn't there, and the special effects weren't there, and they clearly were trying to push the envelope and able to do things that they really didn't have the budget to do effectively.
That, and some of them are just a little slow.
Yes.
Now they did an entire arc with Tom Baker about finding what the key to time, and I'm probably blanking on that since it's been a while since I watched that arc, where he meets the White Guardian, and it goes on for a while, and it's the first Romana, and they're kind of slow because it was a huge arc that they did for a season. So time to change. That was the late '70s. We're now in the 21st century. And I mean, the show's got staying power, and I really do hope they continue the course that they're on. But I do think, they owe Matt Smith a great tribute. Um, he did a really good job, carrying the banner through the 50th anniversary, through, Tenet penetrated into the U.S. I do think he gets a lot of credit for that. Smith sealed the deal in the United States.
And the fact that there's an army of teenage girls that know the Doctor Who character clearly is a tribute to Matt Smith, because it has nothing to do with sci-fi. Granted, there clearly are female fans of science fiction, but not in the numbers that there would be but for Matt Smith. I mean, my daughter would not care about the Doctor Who show if it wasn't for that, her and her friends think that Matt Smith is the next coming. So he clearly brought an audience of younger people to Doctor Who too in the States. I think the British population has just such a love for the show that everyone watches it. It's a family affair. I'm sure everyone's gathered around Christmas watching the Christmas special. Here in America, it's mostly the sci-fi guys that were into Doctor Who, but he really expanded the audience here in the States with his portrayal.
Agreed, and I do believe that now there are far more female fans than there were when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was just dudes going to the Doctor Who, conventions, smaller number of women. And when they did, they had Sylvester McCoy, come to the PBS station. And like all my buddies and I went, but, it was none of the girls from our class went to that. But I do think, I do like the culture change in seeing all the kids, both genders, who are sci-fi fans now.
Right.
And I have some diehard sci-fi fans in my mock trial group. And, they take the time to make the costumes. And like somebody who just has a passing interest isn't going to spend hours making a scarf or a costume or whatever. I'm like, that's a labor of love because they actually care.
And when you see, I'm not a convention goer, but I do like looking at the pictures at the conventions. And you do see a very mixed crowd, and you see an amazing amount of people that put in the effort to do the cosplay stuff.
Yeah, it's Herculean. I don't have that attention to detail. I mean, I can write a brief and research with the best of them, and I'm a really good photographer, but that's well outside my skill set. And God bless them for their ability to do that. So, and I do think it will continue. There might be some, if there were fair weather fans because they liked the way Matt Smith or David Tennant looked, thank you for the time. And if they don't like Peter Capaldi, that's their choice.
I think, Matt, you, like anything else, it's a reason to watch the show. And then if you like the show, you stay with the show. And I think that most of them ended up liking the show. So they'll watch it. And then it's up to the next Doctor to draw their attention or not. I don't think they'll not watch it because he's an older character in the least. He's clearly also going to have Clara. Maybe his next companion is Cumblepat. I mean, it's I have a feeling that next companion might be a younger guy to change that up, or maybe Clara and someone meet each other and there's the twofer companion thing. So I have a feeling that there might be a younger male companion that ends up into the mix.
I still want another Brigadier. I mean, like they've come close a couple times, and yeah, we do have the fictional daughter. That's great. She was great in the 50th anniversary special. But I would like, there's so many, like women surrounding the Doctor. It'd be nice to have another guy that's not a competitor. That's not like Adam, who was in 1.5 episodes and then gets thrown out of the TARDIS, or Rory, which is kind of like a competitor type of thing. Having that wingman again, and I've argued this before, but it would be nice to have a Jamie type character or a Brigadier type character where there's actually, they're true buddies. And I hope Moffat and company do that in September 2014 or early 2015 to see.
Yeah, no, I can see that happening. I can see that happening.
Very good. Well, Matt Smith, in the event you ever see this, thank you. You did make bow ties a lot cooler, and appreciate your help there. And Judge, thank you for your time, and wish you a
Always a pleasure.
Wish you a very successful 2014.
Thank you.